How's it going here? Welcome back to another camera comparison video. Today we've got the Huawei Mate 40 Pro up against the iPhone 12 Pro Max up against the Google Pixel 5. So while not the best from Huawei, this is all I can get my hands on, the Mate 40 Pro, up against the best from Apple and the best from Google. So even though the iPhone 12 Pro Max and the Pixel 5 probably can't compete with the zoom range on the Mate 40 Pro, I still think this will be a very good camera comparison. Right now, the Mate 40 Pro and the iPhone 12 Pro Max are both in 4K. That's the max resolution from their front-facing cameras, while the Pixel 5 is at 1080p, which is its max resolution here. So, like how I always do, I'll show you a bunch of photos and videos in both good and low light conditions to help you decide which of these camera systems might be best for you. So go ahead and take a look at all the photos and videos and leave a comment down below at the end. Let me know which one you thought did better, which one do you like the best. Let's continue our conversation down there. So go ahead and take a look at all the photos and videos and let me know. Everyone, so we're in the park testing out the video on the Huawei Mate 40 Pro, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and the Pixel 5, as you can see right there. And so we've got each of them starting to record here. So they're all recording. Huawei's on the left, iPhone's in the middle, and Pixel's on the right. So let's see how these cameras compare in 4K 30 frames per second out here in a really nice day and pretty much ideal conditions here. So I'll pan around so you can see how they compare to each other. Pay attention to the color reproduction, sharpness, clarity. And as I pan into these trees here, the shadows are probably the sharpest on the Pixel, while they're probably the most uplifted there on the Huawei, and the iPhone somewhere in the middle. I think it's the same thing with the sky there actually. If I look at it in the viewfinder, the iPhone's actually popping up that blue a lot more than the other two. The Huawei's somewhere in the middle, and the Pixel is probably the closest to what I'm seeing with my own eyes. So let's go ahead and pan over here to the right and test the zoom out on that cell tower. So let's move into about 2 times here on the Huawei. Let's go to 2.5 times telephoto on the iPhone and 2 times on the Pixel. So that's what that looks like compared against all three. I can actually go into a max 15 times digital zoom on the Huawei, a max 7 times there on the iPhone, and max 5 times on the Pixel. The Huawei is looking really nice and clear and actually really stable, and so is the Pixel. iPhone's a little bit shaky, at least what I can see in the viewfinder here. That could be stabilized in post. But let's go ahead and back this out to 1 times here on all 3 phones. And let's go ahead and get back to the 1 times on the iPhone and on the Pixel. So let's go ahead and test autofocus here on the post. First with the Mate 40 Pro. So there we go. Autofocus snapped in really quickly and refocused away really quickly. So autofocus here is looking really good here on the Mate. Let's go ahead and try the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Really fast autofocus here as well, and refocus as you would expect. And let's go ahead with the Pixel. Fast autofocus here with the Pixel as well, and refocus away. And probably the most bokeh is coming from, let's see, I would say probably the Mate 40 Pro, then the iPhone, and then the least amount of natural bokeh with the Pixel, as you would expect. Let's go ahead and test stabilization by walking down the stairs here. In 1080p, this should all look pretty well from a stabilization standpoint. But let me know if you see any differences between the 3 different phones here. And I'll pull up here and we'll pan up into the sky to see how each of these phones handle that bright afternoon sunlight.
That's how I got that heat, let's go.
Hey everyone, so we're back out in the park testing out the front-facing cameras here on the Huawei Mate 40 Pro on the left, iPhone 12 Pro Max in the middle, and Google Pixel 5 on the far right. So as you can see, all 3 are recording, so let's go ahead and see how each of these front-facing cameras perform here. And they're all starting out in 4K 30 frames per second, at least the Mate 40 Pro and iPhone 12 Pro Max are. That it's max resolution. The Google Pixel 5 is in 1080p 30 frames per second, which is its max resolution as well. So I'm just trying to test out the max resolution supported on each of these phones and give you a feel for what that looks like across all 3. And so obviously I'm in some ideal light conditions out here in the shade. So this is about as good as you're going to see as far as afternoon shooting outdoors, to give you a feel for what more ideal conditions look like. And what's nice about the Mate 40 Pro is you can actually switch between some lenses here. So this is the main 1 times on the Mate 40 Pro and how that compares to the other 2. But I can actually go ahead and switch out to 0.8 here, so a little bit wider, and how that compares to the other 2 phones here. And I can go all the way out to the ultra wide as well. So even farther out. We can fit much more in the frame on these front-facing cameras on the Mate 40 Pro than you can on the iPhone or on the Google Pixel 5. So if you want to vlog, if you like vlogging a lot, you want to be able to show the scenery around you or fit more people into the frame maybe, then the Mate 40 Pro might be a very good option here for you. But let's go ahead and move it back to 1x. So we have 1x on all three right now to compare. And I'll go ahead and start panning around so you can kind of see what that does here. But as I stand here in probably one of the better angles, the Mate 40 Pro is not necessarily blowing out the sky, but it's kind of highlighted a little bit more. It's not as natural. Exposure is a little bit off. Then the iPhone's not too bad, and the Pixel, again, also not too bad as well. So let's go ahead and pan around and see how the exposure changes into the changing light. And so as we go this way, the sun is now directly behind me. So all three are kind of struggling here, although the Mate might be doing the best actually. That's gonna be typical on pretty much any front-facing camera. You're gonna see that sky blow out as the cameras try to really expose and try to focus on the subject, which is you. And I'll pan around this way, and you can see that should start improving things, especially when we go back this way with the sun directly in front of me. The sky much better exposed, but a lot more shadow on my face, obviously. Now let's go ahead and start walking to test stabilization to give you a feel for what it looks like across all three of these cameras here. So let me know what you think of the outdoor performance here on the front-facing selfie cameras of the Mate 40 Pro, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and the Google Pixel 5. Alright, so here's a low light video test between the Huawei Mate 40 Pro, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and the Google Pixel 5. I'm starting out with the ultra wide angle lens on each to give you a feel for what the differences in this ultra wide angle lens looks like on each of these phones. Now I'll go ahead and switch between this lens and the main lens, but let me just pan around so you can get a sense for what this ultra wide angle lens looks like right now in this setting. And I'll go ahead and move into the main lens on the Huawei. And immediately you're going to see it kind of brighten up a little bit, so you can tell it's the main lens there. And we'll move into the main lens on the iPhone, and then 1x main lens on the Pixel 5. So now that's the differences between the main wide-angle lenses on each of these phones. You can see how they're doing into that bright light. In the viewfinder, the iPhone is doing the best actually against the lens flares. And we'll go ahead and pan around this way, and we'll test the stabilization here as you start walking. And you also get a sense for how these phones handle the light transition from that very well lit area and scene to a much darker scene as we walk this way and around the corner. It's gonna get much darker. So we'll see how the video processes. But I'm just gonna give you my reaction just looking into the viewfinder here. And as I look at it, the Huawei is the brightest right now. And the iPhone and Pixel are kind of looking about the same. But again, that could be different once the video finishes processing and you're seeing this finally in this video right now. But I'll pull up here and it's pretty dark and Huawei's still looking really, really bright. But I'll go ahead and pan up into the dark night sky. And again, same thing, you can see the clouds. So that's actually a good test to see if you can see any kind of cloud definition and if it looks better in any of these three phones here. But I'll go ahead and pan over here to the left, down this darker alley with a little bit more light so you can see what that looks like here in 4K on all three phones. So here's some front-facing video and some low light between the Huawei Mate 40 Pro, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and the Google Pixel 5. So the Huawei and the iPhone are recording at 4K 30 frames per second, which is its highest resolution, and the max resolution on the Pixel is 1080p. So I just wanted to kind of test that across all three. And again, what's nice about the Huawei is that you can switch between some ultra-wide options here. So I'm currently at 1x, but I can actually go ahead and switch it into the 0.8, which is a little bit wider, so you can see what that looks like as far as field of view between the other two phones. And I can go to the ultra wide on the front lens on the Mate 40 Pro, and you can see how much more you can fit into the picture on the front facing camera than the other two. So that's also a very nice option on the Mate 40 Pro. So I'll switch back to 1x and we'll test that out on all three. And as you can see, this is a pretty decently lit area. So a lot of light around me, as you can see here on either side. And so this is pretty much optimal lighting that you're gonna get for low light anyway. And we'll go ahead and start walking to test stabilization. And I'll also start walking to a much darker area so you can see how each of these phones handle in a little bit darker scene. And hopefully the stabilization is doing okay here in low light. Tends to be a little more jittery, but you let me know how each of these phones are looking. And I'll go ahead and start walking around this fountain. So there is some competing noise to the right of me here. We'll see how the microphones handle that. And we'll go ahead and pan around so you can see some much brighter streetlights behind me and how each of these phones handle that. And so far the Pixel's flaring that out the most against the other two, you can see there. And I'll go ahead and pan around and finish up in the darker area here so you can see how this dark scene compares on all three of these phones. And at least from the viewfinder, the iPhone's the darkest. and the Pixel is actually pretty bright along with the Huawei. But do let me know what you think about these three front-facing cameras in low light. Also, let me know what you thought about all the photos and videos you saw here. Which one did you like the best? Drop a comment down below, let me know, and we'll continue our conversation down there. And as always, thanks for watching.